tried to force Monster Cody to check in. Imagine that. Yeah, right. Rollin.
Monster, they already right there. And all I could do was sit down on a little wall. And I'm hoping that they don't see me, that they don't recognize who I am.
The Rollin 60s and the 8 trays have been mortal enemies. They've killed over 20 of my homies. And we've killed over, I'm sure, 27, 28, 9 of them.
Gangsters, Rollin. We killed 28, 29 of them.
Monster Cody did an interview, and he said that he brought somebody's arm, and that was Jay Blake's arm.
You mean to tell me that story is real?
Yes, that was Jay Blake's arm.
Wow. Everyone knows Big U has gained some...
Stop playing with Monster Cody, RP. You heard him? He told a story about it. She like, yo, that was such and such arm. It's a real story.
And that was Jay Blake's arm.
It was Jay Blake.
You mean to tell me that story is real?
Yes, that was Jay Blake's arm.
Everyone knows Big U has gained some stripes in the streets and entertainment industry, so much that he's even been referred to as the Blue Suge Knight of LA, terrorizing everywhere left and right. But before he even came into the picture, there was another Crip member who proved to him and his crew that he was deadlier, Monster Cody.
I think probably able to keep me safety. I walked in the room, I said, hey, yo. I got Monster, man. Gangster. I got really good. I pulled him clean. I said, look, I ain't tripping. You ain't tripping.
If you rewind to the 70s and 80s, Monster Cody had the streets of LA in a chokehold. Everywhere he went, chaos followed. Dude was a problem, and not the kind you could ignore. See, while Big U was out here catching heat for petty murders and flexing power, Kody was already deep in the trenches from the age of 13 or 14, even earning his nickname the hard way. Trouble was second nature to him.
The name came from a beating that I had given a guy. We had robbed him,
okay,
and the dude hit me in the face, and then we chased him and beat him.
But there was one time Big U crossed paths with Kody, and honestly, if Kody had decided to swing that day, things might have gone out of control. In fact, there might not even be any story left of Big U to tell today.
I'm walking up to church, and as I'm walking up to church, I swear to God, it's about 50 hoops walking down the street. And Monster.
So how real does this story get? Let's dive in. Throwing it back to the 70s, Monster Cody wasn't just a name that comes out of your mouth without a tremble. Even Big U knew this himself. That was how notorious this guy was.
Yeah, bro. I was telling the chat the other day about his book. I was like, it's a good read. It's definitely a good read. Definitely one of the best books I ever read.
Was back then. At an early age, this guy ran the streets like they were his playground. He did things boys his age couldn't, even though he didn't get away with most of them. However, just one decision turned his life around, taking it from bad to worse. Kody was put on with the 8 Trey gangster Crips. This was influenced mostly through his connection with a Trey gangster named Trey Ball. At first, he didn't even have a hood name, and since another set already had someone named Kody, his homies weren't trying to let that ride. But that changed later when he earned his own identity the hard way.
I joined the 8 Trey gangsters when I was 11 years old. For the first year, I was just a wannabe. And I found out early on that it's the most courageous acts of violence, the things that no one else do.
Was the first YN.
On June,
Monster Cody was the first YN. He was turning up at 11. 12. Shot a nigga the night he turned Crip. The day he turned Crip, he shot a nigga. Yeah, nah. He the first YN. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, my son was the first YN, nigga.
June 15th.
Violence. The things that no one else do that will get you a reputation.
On June 15th, 1975, Kody officially got initiated into the 8 Trays. That night, he and 4 other 8 Trays slid into Brim territory to handle some business. According to Kody himself, that's the night he caught his first body. And from that...
Oh, fuck clapping the nigga. He caught his first hat.
Point on, he was locked in full-time in the life. By 1977, he picked up the name Monster after he beat a man so badly, stomping him for 20 minutes and leaving him in a coma, that the cops said whoever did that had to be a monster. The name stuck, and that's what everyone called him from then on.
Stomped the man. He was like maybe 30 at that time. I was like 14, 13 or something like that. And I stomped the guy for a long time. I think like 15, 20 minutes. The police came, and they were telling everybody at the scene that whoever did this was a monster. And then that just rippled through the crowd. And when I came back around later that night, they were saying that the police were calling you a monster, man. They were calling you a monster, man. And I was like, well, that's what I am.
Between 1970...
You know a nigga will bug out when niggas, the police looking for you. They say, whoever did this is a monster. Nigga like, you know what? That's my name. Yeah, my name Monster now, nigga. Yeah, nigga, they calling me a monster. I'm a monster.
And I was like, well, that's what I am.
That's my name.
Between 1977 and 1979, Monster Cody was in and out of juvenile hall for shootings and assaults. The longest stretch he did during that time was 9 months. When he got out, the streets had already started to shift. The 8 Trays, who used to be tight with the Rollin 60s Crips, fell out after a fistfight turned into gunplay. Things hit a point of no return when a new 8 Tray recruit took out Tyrone, the younger brother of Big Rick, a respected Rollin 60s member. That move shifted the whole dynamic in the streets. Hoods that were once cool had to pick sides, and old friendships turned into deadly beefs.
That infamous night, infamous day that happened, that was March 3rd. That was March 3rd, 1979. One got killed.
Prior to that, Big Rick brother got killed in March 7th. We had a relationship with them. Then they got into a fight. A guy from 9-0 Gangster or whatever, he ended up shooting Big Rick brother, which is Tyrone.
Monster was all in. The war with the 60s kicked off heavy, and he was already going at it with their blood rivals too. Sets like the Brims and the Inglewood families.
The Rollin 60s and the 8 Trays have been mortal enemies. They've killed over 20 of my homies. And we've killed over, I'm sure, 27, 28, 9 of them.
Around this time, Big U was also beginning to gain traction in LA underworld. He was getting in and out of trouble. And at the spark of the tension, he had just been rewarded by the Rollin 60s as one of the top members who carried out enforcements. To add to that, he had just moved back to LA from Chicago to join in the fight, and it was on, full blown. The 60s guys added to the tension when they left their territories for the 8 Trays to cause havoc. But that was nothing close to what Monster Cody had in store. In the summer of 1980, Monster's mom asked him to walk with her to the store. She liked shopping at this spot called the Buddha Market, which just so happened to be deep in Rollin 60s territory. Sure enough, while there, Monster got into a shootout with a 60s member right outside the store. He caught a case for it but ended up beating it. Then on July 8th, 1980, Monster's girlfriend had just given birth to his first child. On his way to the hospital, he passed through 60s turf and spotted a dude known as Bank Robber, a 60s member. Monster didn't hesitate. He shot him multiple times and drove
Yo. Nah, son. My son was going to see his baby be born, nigga, on the way. On the way. So, hold on. Who that? Jumped out, clapped him. Look,
On his way to the hospital, he passed through 60s turf and spotted a dude known as Bank Robber, a 60s member. Monster didn't hesitate. He shot him multiple times and drove off. By this point, Monster said the war had already claimed lives. 8 Trays had lost about 5 people, and the Rollin 60s had lost around 8. Things had gotten way past just fights and shootouts. This was full-blown war.
I have 6 nephews from my sisters, and 4 of them are gone. They died before they even got 19. And then this is Antoine. He was actually murdered by a 60. My son was a 5-deuce Hoover, okay? A 60 killed my son. I went to 3 funerals in one day.
At one point, the 60s even kidnapped an 8 Tray member's sister and held her for 3 days, doing some truly graphic, messed up things to her. That act alone sparked a whole new level of retaliation. Some 8 Tray gangsters wanted revenge, and not just on anyone. They were gunning for high-profile 60s like Petey Whack, Kidder Rock, Mumbles, and even who were all known shooters from the 60s. They couldn't find them though. So instead, they caught another 60s member and went brutal, chopped him up and even kept his arms as trophies. That was a wild, dark time.
He brought somebody's arm back to a meeting, and that was Jay Blake's arm.
You mean to tell me that story is real?
Yes, that was Jay Blake's arm.
By the end of 1980, Monster got set up by 3 women and ambushed by the 60s. He got shot multiple times but survived. Just 2 days after getting out the hospital, police picked him up for 6 different shootings. He went back to jail to fight the charges and again beat the cases. By 1981, bodies were still dropping left and right between the 8 trays and the 60s. Monster was still in the thick of it. Now, for Big U, everyone already knows that the bro was affiliated with the Rollin 60s. In fact, he is one of the solid standing members of that gang, running things back then, and even now. During the times when Kody was making the streets hot, he had crossed paths with Big U, and let's just say things could have gone sideways pretty quickly.
I'm walking up to church, and as I'm walking up to church, I swear to God, it's about 50 Hoovers walking down the street. And Monster.
The story goes that he had just returned from serving and was at his mother's church when he sighted Kody from a distance. Kody was not just that guy who moved alone. He had an entourage with whom he rolled. On this particular occasion, Big U stated that the moment he sighted Kody with the amount of guys following him, he hoped they didn't see him, and that was for obvious reasons.
They already right there. And all I could do was sit down on a little wall. And I'm hoping that they don't see me, that they don't recognize who I am.
At that time, things were already at a boiling point between 8 trays and the Rollin 60s. And of course, the bodies dropping were unreasonable, so Big U going into hiding was basically survival instinct. But here's the fun part. Kody had sighted Big U from a distance, and he basically walked up to him and kept things friendly.
Monster walked by, he looked at me, I looked up at me, he looked, he said, "Big U?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and he said,
The whole situation passed, and of course, it is no lie that Kody could have decided to end things then and there. But instead, everything just hissed out. Later, Monster ended up getting sent back to jail and caught a 4-year stretch for something he said he didn't even do. While locked up, he ran into Little Fee, a known 60s member. They clowned each other's hoods, traded insults, but it didn't go further than that at the time. While doing time at YTS, youth training school, Monster met a counselor who introduced him to Islam. He started going to services, reading books, and digging into teachings from the Nation of Islam and other revolutionary minds. He was released in early 1984 with his mindset starting to shift, but the streets pulled him right back in. By August of '84, he bumped into Little Fee again, this time out in the open at a spot called the Golden Ox. Things popped off quick. A shootout broke out with several 60s, and Little Fee was leading the charge. Neither Monster nor Little Fee got hit, and somehow both made it out of that situation alive. But freedom didn't last long. In September '84, Monster went back to jail after a 60s member named Little Eddie ID'd him as one of the shooters who got him. Monster got locked up in the infamous 2800 block. Turns out, Little Fee was also in there at the time for a separate shooting. But soon, his charges got even heavier. He was later tied to the shooting of football player Kermit Alexander's family and ended up getting life for that.
Los Angeles police say the mother, sister, and 2 nephews of former National Football League star Kermit Alexander were shot dead in their home today. Witnesses said the 2 gunmen walked in the family bungalow and opened fire.
While still inside, Monster joined a prison-based Crip organization called the Consolidated Crip Organization, CCO. He was brought in by Tony Stacy from Hoover. Somewhere along the line, a member of the Black Guerrilla family, BGF, gave him the name Sanyika Shakur, which he eventually made official and legally changed to. In 1985, Monster was sent to Chino State Prison to serve a 7-year bid. While he was in, the CCO started falling apart. Internal politics, Hoover leaving the CCO, and rising tension with another Crip group called the Blue Notes turned everything messy. The unity they once had started crumbling fast. Somewhere along the line, Big U caught a case. The story goes, his heavy involvement in the streets during that era, that wild 80s crack era where LA was like a war zone, led him to get locked up on some serious charges tied to gang and street activities.
Look at your man Trap Law. Look at your meds.
He was sentenced to 23 years, but had a bid for 13 years. By 1988, Monster Cody was beginning to turn things around for himself. He started putting pen to paper, channeling his energy into writing. That same year, he got paroled and was finally out. Trying to walk a different path, he focused more on being a family man and started stepping away from the streets. For a while, he chilled on the gangbanging and crime. But in 1991, he got caught up again. This time for beating a man who was selling dope in his neighborhood without checking in. That landed him another sentence, 7 years behind bars. While doing that time, Monster started connecting with the New African movement and really started digging into his identity. And
7 years for beating a nigga up for not checking in and selling dope on his block. You know the police, they just wanted him. The courts, they just wanted my son.
Monster started connecting with the New African movement and really started digging into his identity in politics. He also made a huge mark with his writing. While still locked up, he dropped the autobiography of an LA gang member, a raw, powerful book that ended up becoming one of the most iconic urban memoirs ever written. He didn't stop there either. He wrote Thug Life and popped up in a few of those classic hood DVDs too. Around this time, Big U had been released and had decided to turn his life around. For Disguise though, he made his mark in the music industry, not just as a figure behind the scenes, but as a key player in shaping careers, Nipsey Hussle being one of them. Big U's story was deep. Going from the streets to becoming a respected philanthropist says a lot about the kind of turnaround he made. He used his journey to reflect, grow, and shift his path. He put real effort into doing better, not just for himself, but for his entire community. One of the biggest things he's known for was his work with Developing Options, a nonprofit that's all about giving underprivileged youth real opportunities. On top of that, he's heavily involved with the Crenshaw Cougars football program, a youth team in LA that focuses on discipline, teamwork, and leadership. Big U's influence didn't just stop at the streets or the music scene. From music to mentoring to football fields, Eugene Big U Henley was a living example of what redemption can look like. For Monster Cody, when he got out, he still had a few more run-ins with the law. In 2007, he landed back in jail again after making LA's most wanted list, did a year bid, then got paroled once more. Even with all the charges he faced, Monster somehow always found a way back out. By early 2009, he started popping up in interviews, speaking openly about his past, where his head was at now, and what he was trying to do with his life. A lot of people started paying attention again, not just because of the drama, but because of how real he was with his story. Sadly, Monster Cody, aka Sanyika Shakur, passed away on June 6, 2021. His death hit the streets hard.
Pour out some liquor for the who ain't here. I miss all my homies and every day I hold back tears.
He was respected by a lot of people, and even some of his old rivals showed up at his funeral to pay their respects. For all the chaos he brought, he also left behind a legacy that still echoes through the culture. Now, if you were to ask Big U who Monster Cody really is, he'd probably keep it real and tell you just how notorious the guy was back in the day. They were age mates, both out there in the thick of things, but even Big U knew there were certain lines you just didn't cross with Cody, and he is probably lucky to be alive. Except his being alive only made things worse. Remember I mentioned that whatever Big U was about was all under a disguise? Well, here it is, despite everything good that's tied to his name. Especially the work he did helping to launch the career of the late Nipsey Hussle, Big U's story isn't without its dark corners. For a while now, there have been whispers, serious ones. Some folks believe he might have been connected to a few murders, including that of a rapper named Rayshawn Williams, and even controversially, Nipsey himself. And now, the feds have officially stepped in. They just dropped a major indictment, charging over a dozen members and associates of the Rollin 60s Crips, Big U included, with a long list of serious crimes. We're talking extortion, human trafficking, fraud, and murder. They're painting the picture of a mafia-style setup, and Big U was right in the middle of it. One of the most chilling parts is the case involving Rayshawn Williams.
They do say that part of the investigation involves the murder of another young rapper. They told me over the phone that the murder was over, are you ready for this? A diss.
Feds say Big U was behind his kidnapping and brutal execution, shot in the face and left out in the Las Vegas desert, all over some supposed disrespect. But
that just goes to show you some niggas not playing. Niggas want to be playing around. Niggas want to be playing around, making diss songs and shit. Some niggas ain't playing. That is what it is.
This isn't and left out in the Las Vegas desert, all over some supposed disrespect. But this isn't just some.
And I'm not saying I don't think Big U would do that though, man. Big U, bro, man, I don't think he killed a nigga over this song. But then again, he might. Not saying he did. Not saying I doubt he did. I'm gonna stay with that. But you know he older. He from the old school. Niggas is diluting you for less. So, but yeah, nah. We gonna just say he didn't though.
Left out in the Las Vegas desert, all over some supposed disrespect. But this isn't just some random dude. Rayshawn was signed to Big U's own label, Unique Music. They were actively working on a project together, and it was Big U who arranged the whole Vegas setup. Airbnb, travel plans, studio sessions, the works. The idea was simple. Record one track a day and build out something special. But once Rayshawn landed in Vegas on January 19th, things started going left. He missed a couple studio sessions but promised to double down the next day. That same night, he hit the booth and laid down a diss track, one the cops later found. They think it was aimed straight at Big U.
Want the dough, but what I'm worried about, doing all that talking, he's the one to clout, so I'ma pull up to his crib.
Word is that track made its way back to Big U. Between that and the missed sessions, tensions flared. Just a few days later, on January 20th.
That was the track? He said some shit like he gonna go up to his crib. Man, OGs ain't taking, niggas ain't taking them shits lightly. Them threats.
Want the dough, but what I'm worried about, doing all that talking, he's the one to clout, so I'ma pull up to his crib.
Word is that track made its way back to Big U. Between that and the missed sessions, tensions flared. Just a few days later, on January 23rd, Big U and a guy named Sylvester allegedly drove out to Vegas from LA. They got there around 2 a.m. on the 24th. Later that night, Big U pulls up to the Airbnb and confronts Rayshawn about skipping the studio. Rayshawn tells him he didn't have a ride. One of his boys was there too and overheard the convo. Then around 9 p.m., Big U shows up at the studio. Rayshawn rolls through at 11, records till about midnight. Big U dips at 12:37 a.m. in a gray sedan. And here's where things get murky. That gray sedan Big U and his guy drove out and pretty much vanished into thin air. Big U's phone went dark just before 1 a.m. with the last ping showing him right near the studio. Then at exactly 1:13 a.m., surveillance caught that same car pulling up to the Airbnb. Rayshawn walks out, suitcase in hand, tosses it in the trunk, hops in, and just like that, he was gone. Nobody saw him alive after that moment. Here'd been long-standing tension between Nipsey Hussle and Big U, with some believing it played a role in Nipsey's death. Back in 2011, things nearly exploded during an argument behind a Shell station in Hyde Park. Black Sam even fired a warning shot, LAPD showed up, and chaos broke out. That moment made it clear this wasn't just a minor beef. Add in label drama and money issues, and things got worse. Nipsey eventually dropped a diss track, ending any hope of peace. Rumors followed, stories of Big U keeping pressure on him even during DJ Khaled's visit.
But there was a lot of big politics getting into it with certain people. You know, Hussle had DJ Khaled in the hood, and Hussle frontline that.
Then Nipsey was killed by Eric Holder, a known Rollin 60s member, sparking whispers that Big U might have had a deeper hand in it. Nothing's ever been proven, but the speculation never stopped. Despite the recent happenings with Big U and the Rollin 60s, one thing is clear, they could not have matched half of Monster Cody's infamy. And even to now, he is still remembered as one of the most notorious gangsters that ever happened to the game.
Like, comment, subscribe, man. RP Monster Cody. Free Big U.